This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Welcome to Six Tackles with Gus for another week. Plenty to get through on another Bonza show. The NRL casualty ward is bulging today. Millions of dollars worth of NRL talent sidelined for round 4 and beyond. Which club fares the worst in the current injury crisis? Love that word in rugby league, crisis. A rousing response to our two topics from last week, your top wow moments and the best players to have never played rep footy. We'll run the rule over all of that. Some more great Ask Us questions and a look at round 4, which is very interesting again. Phil Gould, hello.
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
I'm good. Now, before we get into anything.
Rugby league loves a crisis.
Yeah.
We love a crisis.
And a bombshell.
Crisis is good. Crisis talks. You need crisis talks. Clubs in crisis. Games in crisis. Yep. Bunkers in crisis. Everyone's in crisis.
Have you or have you not had a session with John Aiken this week?
Yeah, look, that's confidential.
Why?
That's confidential. Well,
yeah.
You know.
He's a patient of yours. You're a patient of his now, so we're bound by confidentiality.
And it involves someone else too, who's really the problem. He's really the root of all the problems.
Oh, it's a man. Yep. Right. So it's a work colleague.
Yep.
Right.
It's a crisis on 100%
crisis. Footy. John Aiken. Oh, I can't believe
he's coming to solve a crisis.
How funny. I saw a great photo of you and Gal and he. Is he a good bloke?
Yeah, good bloke. Good bloke, yeah. I got a lot of inside goss on MAFS, though, yeah.
What can you share?
No,
come on.
Confidentiality.
Right.
Confidentiality. Stand
by for Gus's session on the couch. Words I never thought I'd say. Before we get into the podcast on a deeper level, very sad news this week in rugby league. It's been well publicised, and so it should be. The passing of the late Ian Heads, legendary sports writer, particularly with rugby league, a man who was universally respected throughout his career and someone who maintained the utmost integrity throughout his career in journalism, which is not something that is easily done, given the cutthroat nature of the business. And I just want to send our condolences to the Heads family and honour the legacy of a great sports writer with a particular love of rugby league.
He certainly did. He was an icon, absolute icon in the media industry, wonderful, passionate supporter of rugby league. Such integrity, great integrity, great honesty. Everything he wrote was trusted, it was truthful, it was knowledgeable, it was educational, it was entertaining. In all my years in rugby league, I have never heard anyone say a bad word about Ian Heads, and that's quite an achievement in this game.
You're not kidding.
He's he was a credit to the profession of journalism. I think is the best way I can describe him, and the way I think he would like to be remembered. He was an absolute credit to that profession, or what it used to be anyway.
Condolences to the Heads family. We pass on their very best. Round 3 takeaways. Gus, who was the most impressive team on the weekend?
The most impressive team on the weekend was Panther. I felt.
Panther. You're worthy contenders. Panther. Okay. Most impressive player?
Most impressive player was Uppy Coruscant.
Yep. Thought you might have said Tiger was the most impressive team on the weekend.
Well, it was an entertaining win, wasn't it? It was an enjoyable win. It was something for everyone in that. Rugby league, it throws up those stories, doesn't it? Just went, see, Balmain were in crisis. The Tigers were in crisis last week. They're in crisis. They had a coaching crisis. They had a team crisis. They had all sorts of crisis. Then what happens? Come out and wipe the floor with the shark.
Thought Parramatta and Manly were both very good on Sunday.
They were excellent. That was a brilliant game of footy. If you wanted to advertise the game anywhere in the world, you would take the snippets out of that game. It was just pulsating for the whole 80 minutes. Lead changed 5 times, and some brilliant football and some real resilience. That's the one thing I like about the Parramatta team this year. I thought Manly would win that game. I thought Manly were going better, and Parramatta, after their tough game out at Penrith the week before, just might be hard for them to back up. And it was early. They were down 14-0 early, but they've just got this resilience. They had it at Penrith Park. They showed some real resilience out there when they lost a player early in the game, and they'll be very, very pleased with how they handled their early part of the season. I can tell you, they've got a problem now. Their halfback's out for 8 weeks, which is going to be a huge loss to them. He is so important to them. I think Coach Brad Arthur and his team, they deserve a pat on the back. It's been they're a really tough and resilient footy team this year. Yes! No.
Hey.
No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
Well, we've got some very noteworthy and topical questions for Gus today, starting with political hot potato, as they say, down on Macquarie Street. We must save Leichhardt Oval, Gus. Yes!
Well, save it for something.
Yeah.
Save it for something. Look, it's a difficult one. I get it. I understand where the government's coming from about expenditure on these things. We've got beautiful new stadia here in Sydney. I mean, Allianz Stadium is just world class. It's a brilliant facility. Our Olympic Stadium, which was built 24, 26 years ago now for our Olympic Games, and I still love going there. I love the big games there, the Origins and all the other sports, when Matildas play and when we have concerts and all. I think it's a great start. I would love to have a roof on the stadium out there, the Olympic Stadium, and of course Bankwest or CommBank Stadium now as it is out there. Again, there's another great facility, but we all love the nostalgia and that comes with suburban grounds, and that's where our childhood was, and that's where our childhood memories are, and that's where it's more intimate, it's more boutique, and it's better for the smaller crowds when you play out of town teams or you play on certain days of the week and nights which are not conducive to families getting to grounds, but Leichhardt Oval finds a way to pack itself out. It's just become a little bit of has a following of its own. And the Tigers playing out of Leichhardt Oval is part of our history. And, you would love to preserve some of that for something. But this is the reality of it, right? And I know because we have this same feeling about Belmore with the Bulldogs, and I'm sure Panthers have it about Penrith Park out there as well. And I know the business of rugby league. If in 10 years' time we're all still playing out of suburban grounds, we're losing money and we're nearly, we can't do it. We've got to get our games into big stadiums with average crowds of 40 and 50,000 people. That's where we want to project our game and the perception of our game. Every time they play at Leichhardt Oval, I guarantee they'll lose money. Every time we play at Belmore, as much as we love Belmore, we lose money. It's just financially impossible. There's no corporate hospitality. It doesn't have the facilities, the modern-day facilities that people like. It's fine to go there for an hour and a half and sit on the hill and enjoy the sunshine and all of that, but it's just not. It's not financially possible. I don't know how you get around that to have the nostalgia of the old, unless you've got a second-tier competition that would support those grounds or some sort of midweek knockout competition, which Leichhardt Oval became famous for back in the days of the AMCO Cup. It's just probably impossible these days. Whether it becomes the hub of women's football, I don't know.
What would it take, and you can answer this from a Belmore perspective, what would it take from a facilities perspective to bring that ground up to speed so you are able to generate the hospitality revenue and therefore not lose money?
Yeah, look, what you would need to provide in corporate hospitality and in facilities, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money because the current grandstands in those places need replacing anyway. If you're going to, you wouldn't spend the money to go and just put corporate hospitality in the current circumstances. You'd have to build a whole new stadium, and they're $300 or $400 million now to do what you really need to do with these grounds if you wanted to bring it up to that standard. And if you're going to do that, well, you can't put a roof on Olympic Park, which is important. We just had the Taylor Swift concerts out there and all the world entertainers that comes. And if we get, European soccer teams come out here, or our Matildas who have a fanatical following at the moment, and even our Olympic, our Socceroos and all that sort of thing. I mean, we can find a way to fill an 80,000 seat stadium with content, but bringing the facilities up to world standards. And I think those that went to Vegas and what we saw from Vegas see what a world-class facility really looks like. Surely our city has got to aspire that over time. Yeah, that's why I couldn't understand the decision not to build a new stadium for the Olympic Games in Brisbane. I mean, I just don't get that.
Yeah, that's.
I just don't get that. We're on show to the world.
Well, what it is.
What are we going to do? A cut price Olympic Games? Give me a break.
Well, we are. Well, we are.
Why? Why?
Well, because at the moment the political landscape is such that there's all this talk about cost of living, and understandably, because families are struggling, and need. There needs to be a government focus on that, certainly. But by the same token...
But they do focus on that. They do. Don't get into the political...
No, but the governments
we
are
spend
reluctant.
plenty on that. We spend plenty of money on that. Plenty of money on that. It's a drop in the ocean to build a new stadium for events like that.
But governments are reluctant to be seen spending money on stadia.
Well,
when
that's
politicising. Well, that is politicising it. And people at Belmore and Brookvale and Penrith, etc., they're all taxpayers, and in many cases, their outlet is to go to the football.
We're going at Belmore now. We're going to spend $40-50 million building a new facility that will tie the Bulldogs to the Belmore area forever. Right? It will always be the Bulldogs' home in the middle of Belmore, in the middle of Canterbury. It will always be there. But so far as spending enough money to make it and take it into the modern era to make it financially viable to actually play home games there is a whole, and it can't keep doing that. You can't keep doing that. It's as simple as that. So it's, as much as we all want to keep touch with the history and the nostalgia that goes with it, and people love these sort of little events, is that how our game needs to be portrayed into the long term? I just don't know.
All right.
What, you don't agree?
Well,
I understand the nostalgia.
The history of the game. The history of the game is important.
Of course, it's important. Of course, it's important.
So if we have Leichhardt Oval decay and fall apart, and left to rot, what?
Well, I don't think
really?
It should ever be left to rot. I don't think it should decay and fall apart. But
because we don't want to spend any money on it in the current political environment. I think that's a bit short-sighted.
Well, you just said that we couldn't build a stadium for the Olympics because we're...
No, I'm telling you what the various governments around the country are saying about it. I actually spoke with a colleague of ours just before we came on air. He's told me that, Neil Breen, that the Tasmanian election at the weekend, not one politician went into that. So there's a new AFL team to go in Tasmania. Not one politician went into the Tasmanian election at the weekend pledging to build a stadium. They were all anti-building a new stadium. Mm. That's what people want to hear.
Yeah, well, the world's gone crazy, hasn't it? It has gone crazy.
Which segues lovely.
The world has gone crazy.
Taylor May should have been suspended.
No. Why'd you bring that up?
Because Graham Annesley said he should have been.
Serenity now. How ridiculous. How ridiculous. How many head clashes did we have on the weekend?
Well, we had
Bulldogs lost one in the first minute the other day. No one was crying for over poor old Poasa. It just happens. It happens in the game. These things happen. You're not going to stop that. And now what we're going to do, penalise and suspend people for it?
We had split opinions on our commentary team. Brad Fittler said that he, from the referee and the bunker who were overseeing that game, said that the target area needed to be lowered. And Freddie agreed. Gal said it was an accident.
Well, it was an accident. I don't think at any time Taylor May meant to go in there and hit him with his chin, which is exactly what he did. The head clash. You'll see a bloke catch a kick off on the dead, on the try line on the dead ball line, and the bloke starts from halfway. They've got 60 metres running at each other, right? 60 metres. They've got to think about it before the collision. And what happens? Sam Burgess and James Graham in the grand final. 60 metres they had all week to think about it and 60 metres to run for that first collision. And what happened?
You know what would happen now?
They clashed heads.
James Graham would be charged.
Yeah. And the other bloke would be sent off for concussion. And we wouldn't have had either in the game. That's how the game is now. Yet, Sam Burgess has celebrated one of the tough men in the league and one of the great stories in rugby league history and all that would have happened.
The interpretation of that tackle would be that James Graham didn't exercise a sufficient duty of care.
What's this duty of care? We're out there playing a physical contact sport.
That's what they'll say.
If you don't go outside the rules, the rest of it happens. This duty of care thing is the most overused and least understood term. Where this came from, I got no idea. Duty of care? Duty of care? Duty of care. It's professional sport. We're playing for a win.
Sounds like a legal term to me.
Well, if you step outside the rules of our game, stupidly, like if you pick up a chair and bang it over someone's head like they used to do in World Championship Wrestling,
no
you take a foreign object onto the field and hit someone with it, as they used to do in World Championship Wrestling, well, then you can take civil action against that if you think someone stepped outside the rules of the game and did something untoward towards you. If someone comes and king hits you from behind or what have you, if someone did something outlandish to you. But as footballers, we accept the risks of the game. There are risks in playing this game. We understand them. We know them. We play anyway.
Did you ever see anyone take a foreign object out in the ground when you were playing?
No.
Like, not a nothing?
I saw a bloke take Denko rub out on his fingers one day.
Didn't I get someone, did he? Oh.
She was rough. She was rough and ready back then.
Time for Latrell to go back to the centres.
No. No, maybe in representative football, but not in club football. His numbers are all right. There's nothing wrong with his numbers at fullback, and he's dangerous from there in club football. Representative football, that's probably his spot. And he didn't play in last year's series, and he's been a bit spasmodic with his rep footy in recent years. But from a club perspective, I think he's most useful and most dangerous at fullback. I couldn't see any reason to move him there. I think at fullback you're actually encouraging him to get involved more on both sides of the field, down the middle of the field, which wouldn't happen if he was playing in the centres. I think you've got to keep him in the game. So, no, I wouldn't be moving him into the centres at all. He's still a very, very dangerous commodity. And his figures this year are actually pretty good. Yeah, and there's a few in that South Sydney side. Their individual figures are actually good. And I think if you asked all the South Sydney players, they'd all say they're trying hard individually, but it's just not working for them at the moment as a group. And that carries over from last year too. So, but they'll turn it around. They got 6 or 7 Origin players, and they got Tom Burgess, who's an English international. I mean, the roster's too good to be losing games every week.
Last question: no Tino, no Titans.
No. No, I never believed one player should have that a dramatic effect on you. It's obviously a huge loss, big loss. But they have got Fafita to come back. They've got Mo Fatawaika, who I've got a really huge opinion of. They've got some good players in that side. We've spoken about the Titans for several years on this podcast, and everyone gets a little bit confused with the talent level and their results. And it's why I thought Des Hasler might be the and I'm sure he will be in time. He just needs more time with them. But they need to have a greater focus on when they don't have the ball. They're quite dangerous when they've got it, but when they don't have the ball, they don't seem to have the same aptitude, and they need to fix that.
That being said, I don't think we've talked about the influence of Turbo and Manly from an attacking perspective. Even when Tino goes off the field during a game for the Gold Coast, it's like they start spinning their wheels when he's not out there.
Oh yeah, that's why he's worth the big bucks. You know, I mean, and he is to them, and he would do it for any team. Like Tino's a player who could go into any team and improve them. And if you're going to spend that amount of money on one player and he's missing, it's a big hole that can't be filled in that respect. But there's plenty of what Tino does that'll be soaked up by other players. And Tino doing what he's doing is still not helping the Titans with their results at the moment. Right, so there is a lot of other aspects to their game they've got to get right before they can, cry poor that Tino's not here, therefore we can't be expected to win. And I'm sure they don't feel like that. But, again, it's professional footballer. You get injuries and sometimes you lose your main man. It happens, but life goes on. You've got to get on without it.
Yeah.
There's not as much depth in the rosters these days as there was many, many years ago. There's not as much development of future NRL players. It's so hard to play in the NRL. The difference between NRL and the next tier of football, your reserve grade football, is so great. It's so great. And the difference between age group football, age restricted football and senior football is so great. It's hard.
Yeah. But for a team that would have been optimistic that they could improve on last year and maybe challenge for a spot in the 8, to be 9-3 and to have scored one try and conceded 60 points.
I thought they could. Well, they had a bye in that, so they didn't lose 3. They won the last 2. Yeah. So, but Yeah.
It's a shocking start.
This is the time of year, though, where you do get some outlier results and teams can bounce back very, very quickly. So, let's hope the Titans do, because it's important that all our teams are strong and they're successful.
So, my question to you is, who's come out of all this carnage worse off? Reece Walsh 4-6. Brendan Piakura, also from Brisbane, gone for a month after he sprained an ankle at training. So there's a couple of bad ones. Nathan's obviously going to miss 2 games. They said he'll be back after the bye, so it's probably not all that. I mean, it's not great.
When's Payne Haas back?
Yes, good question. Good question. I don't know. Let me have a look at my injury update. Payne Haas, knee round 8.
Yeah, so he's missing for another 5 weeks. You've got Reece Walsh out. You've got Piakura now, who's struggling. Adam Reynolds is back in this week, but, he's at this stage of his career, he's kind of week-to-week proposition. They lost Farnsworth. They lost Flegler. They lost Capewell. 3 very experienced players. So all of a sudden, out of the team that got through to the grand final last year, you find yourself with 5 or 6 different people in the squad. It's a completely different team, yet you're being treated by the grand finalists from last season and one of the top picks to win the premiership. But it's not your team. That's having that many players out of your side is problematic for them, and they are vulnerable at the moment.
And the three blokes you wouldn't want out.
Exactly. If you had to pick 3, they wouldn't be the 3. So, so it's when you get a number of them, when you get a cluster of them all at that time, and they're going to be out for an extended period of time. And what happens is then, who are you exposing? Now, the Broncos have got a great development system, and they're able to hold players back longer and get them more grounding in Queensland Cup than a lot of other clubs can afford to do. There's West Tigers. They've got an 18-year-old 5'8". They've had to throw him in at this age, right? Where Broncos don't usually do that. When their guys get to first grade, they look like first graders because they've had a really big grounding. So they might be able to get over this and they might be able to put a competitive side out there. But if that were to happen to some of the other teams in this competition, you take their top 3 or 4 players out and you're now replacing them with kids that have got no grounding in the NRL and are not quite ready for the NRL. That's why we get 50, 60, 70-point score lines, because the NRL is really hard. I can't stress that enough. It's really hard, and if you find that a club has injury problems and understrength and they have a number of players out there who don't have a lot of experience, and, you've really got to play 60 or 70 first-grade games to even feel like an NRL player these days. It's really hard for them. So, Broncos, that's going to be difficult for them. I think they're the ones that have been hit the worst. Couple of injuries, but also the ones that they've lost. So now they're going to be exposing. It's a completely different looking team to what went to the grand final last year.
Well, hold my beer, because I had a good look over all this earlier, and I'll tell you who's really struggling, Cronulla. Because all their injuries are all middles. Finucane, Rudolph, Hunt, Hamlin-Uele, Cahoon. 5 middles, all done. So Finucane's 3 weeks out, round 8 Rudolph, round 8 Hunt, TBC Hamlin-Uele, indefinite Cahoon.
Yeah, but let's look at what team they've fielded, because if you had 5 middles out for a lot of teams, and we experienced this last year, and I've been in a number of clubs that have experienced this over the year, you look at the team list for Cronulla this week, their forward pack is now Hazelton, who's had really good grounding, Blake Brayley, who's been there before, Oregon Kafus is going really well, Talakai's moved from centre to the back row. Well, we all expected that was going to happen to some. Teague Wilton is a really good player, and Cameron McGuinness is extremely experienced. On the bench, Jack Williams, who's played plenty. Billy Burns has played plenty. And Big Tuku Tupua, have you seen how big he is?
Yeah, he's big.
He's a monster. All right. Now,
he's hardly played in the NRL, though.
No, that's right. That's right. But you've got enough experience around him here. It's still a competitive forward pack. Who have they got this week? They've got
the big tough hombres from Canberra.
Canberra, yeah. Well, it's going to be a struggle for them. And Talakai moving from the centres is a loss for them, because he's doing really well out there. But I know a lot of teams in the NRL that if they were missing 5 middles, they could not field a team anywhere near as strong as that. You've got a young fella here in that Max Bradbury, who's the young fella they got down from Newcastle, who's a very good young player. Hard. It's hard. So, Cronulla, they'd be struggling a little bit. I think Broncos come out of it better. I think Mitchell Moses is a huge loss for Parramatta.
Oh, yeah.
A massive loss.
Round 12.
Massive loss. That's a massive loss.
Well, they had Brown.
The only saving grace is he's been carrying a little groin injury, and that will probably heal in that time. But and that's something that could have got progressively worse as the year went on. But he is so important to them. There are aspects of his game that I don't think can be replaced.
Like what?
Someone will do it. But his long kicking, his judicious kicking, his spontaneity, his support play, but his kicking in particular, and they rely so heavily on it, it saves them a lot of poor sets of six, the way he can finish off a set of six from deep in his own half all the way up to close to their line. There are points in his kicking, and there's a lot of easy meters in his kicking to get them out of trouble, and he's the mainstay of that. That's a really hard trait to replace. They'll get someone to kick the ball, but they won't kick it as well as Mitchell Moses.
Brown to halfback.
Yeah, well, it's a nice test for him. He's at the age now where he needs to have that sort of responsibility, but he doesn't kick like Mitchell Moses. He doesn't create like Mitchell Moses. He's more of a ball runner. I see him more as an individual thing. I'm happy when Brown passes the ball because it's not in his hands.
And they haven't really got a backup. Well, in fact, they haven't. They haven't got a backup half on the bench or the extended bench. So they were kind of forced into that. They probably got some young kids there.
They've got some young kids there, but...
Too young.
Too young. Now's not the time.
Or maybe Gutho. Gutho's going to have to do a bit of that work, hey?
I'm sure he will. But, they'll cope. There are aspects of, when you lose a player, particularly like that, there are some aspects you cannot replace. You can't replace their experience. You can't replace their calmness under pressure. You can't their confidence and their belief. You can't you can't replace the knowledge they have of the people around them and how they bring people into the game and how they make people, and their combinations with different people. They're all the things you lose. The physical aspects of catching, passing the ball and sometimes kicking the ball, you can replicate it, but there are other factors. I think Mitchell Moses is such an important cog in that machine, which is why they paid the big bucks to keep him. They couldn't afford to lose him. You get a good one, you've got to hold on to them.
Gee, I'm keen for your tip in that game coming up.
Oh, yeah?
Tiger. All right. The 100th meeting between Penrith and the Roosters.
Which player is
Who
the
scored the most points?
Oh, wow.
It's been some great point scorers.
What era? Dave Brown? No, that Penrith went around then.
I can't tell you the era.
Oh, you can't tell me the era.
Do you know, if I'd have been asked this question without seeing the answers, I might have said Brad Fittler, but I'm not right.
He's not a goal kicker.
No, but he played 1 million games, but for both clubs.
Yeah, but, it does have to be a goal kicker.
It is a goal kicker.
A girdler?
No.
A Cleary?
Yes.
Ivan or Nathan?
Nathan. 115 points.
How many did Ivan score?
Don't know, but I can tell you who's second. He's a Rooster, and he was a goal kicker, and he was a forward.
Forward, goal kicker. He was, don't know. What era?
You coached him in Origin.
I coached him in Origin. Oh, Craig Fitzgibbon.
Correct.
Yeah.
108. And Greg Alexander, 88. There you go. Cleary, Fitzgibbon, Alexander. I would have thought Girdler would be way up on that list. There you are.
That's a question out of left field. 100 games between Rooster and Panther.
Yeah, Phil Gould Cup. Hey, little bit of cross.
Was my first ever game as Panther captain was against Rooster.
Yeah, I know you told me. That's a Bob Fulton one.
Down at the old Sydney Football Stadium. Sydney Football Ground. That's what they call it.
Sydney Showground.
Sydney Sports Ground. Sydney Sports Ground. Used to run east-west.
Couldn't pull the wool over your eyes, could he?
No.
Even though he tried.
Yeah. He did many times later.
A little bit of cross-promotion. Yesterday, Gus, was 4 months on the knocker until the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics.
Yeah. Are you going? You must be going. You calling something?
It hasn't been publicised yet.
Oh, you're under confidentiality, are you?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
A lot of confidentiality clauses here.
All right.
I'm fairly confident I'll be on the plane, though, somewhere.
So who's calling the footy?
You are.
Me?
And to coincide
that won't be worth watching.
with 4 months until the the start of the Paris Olympics, we launched our brand new podcast series called Road to Paris. I've been working on this with Matt White and Jordan, our 9 audio team, for many, many months now.
Very exciting. We've got it for like 10 years, haven't we? All the Olympics.
Next 3 Olympics. And then Winter Games as well, and Youth Olympics. And so this is the home, 9 is the home of the Olympics. But I have to say, Gus, obviously I work primarily in football, but I'm, as you know, a general sports lover, and having the opportunity to interview in depth some of the greatest Olympians this country has ever produced over the last 6 months has been an absolute thrill. Yep. An absolute thrill. Yesterday, we launched the series. The first guest responsible for the best performance, most breathtaking performance by an Australian on the Olympic velodrome. It is our chef de mission for the Paris Olympics of 2032, the great Anna Meares. Here's a snippet of it.
On the track, you can win and lose by a thousandth of a second, and you can do all the physical preparation and something mental will tip you over one way or the other. It might be a comment from the crowd. It might be you don't think about how many cameras are going to be on you. Maybe you're not prepared for the noise of the stadium. The emotional response to the pressure of an environment and a stadium that you've never been in before or ever experienced, it can make you or break you. And there's really no middle ground. And for me, it made me.
Gold medal, Anna Meares! Magnificent! And Pendleton does congratulate Anna Meares. There's bitter rivalry between them. And Anna is punching the air. Gold medal to Anna Meares.
Yes, that was 2012 London Games. Victoria Pendleton versus Anna Meares. It was the showdown of the games, and our Anna won the gold in spectacular fashion. So it was wonderful to talk to her. She's such a champion. And,
I met her recently, and I'm trying to work out where it was. Was it here?
Would have been, probably.
No,
she's been around.
No,
maybe.
It wasn't. I was with some people and I was introduced, and she was like really.
Do you know where it might have been? It might have been at the Origin last year. She was up at Suncorp Stadium because she's a Queenslander. She's from up north Queensland.
Could have been. Anyways, yeah, and she was sort of saying, they introduced me, so this is Anna Meares and blah, blah, blah. And I went, Anna Meares? The Anna Meares? And I'm sort of saying, I said, excuse me, did they say Anna Meares? She said, yes. I said, are you the Anna Meares?
There's not too many of them.
I was a big fan of Anna Meares. And she's like, some of her moments in sport were just exhilarating. Like, there's sports that we don't see regularly on TV, but every 4 years I become an expert in the pole vault and this and that and all the other, the track and field. I mean, it's just brilliant. But I remember her especially, Anna Meares, and she gave us some wonderful moments.
Guts, absolutely.
And it was a great thrill to meet her. Lovely lady. Great
thrill for me to speak to all of them. So, Road to Paris. Subscribe to that. When all the episodes drop, you'll get the chance to have a listen up. There's been some amazing stories, and I've some of them I've left just going, well, I can't believe I've just had a chance to sit down for an hour and a half and talk to these people, and we've got some great legends of Australian Olympic history and Paralympic history coming up. So do we mention we got the Paralympics too? So we do have the Paralympics as well as we have Olympics, Paralympics, Winter Olympics, everything you need to know. And great.
Very exciting. It'd be a great thrill for you to be going to call all those as well.
It will be great. It will be great.
I loved the Sydney Olympics. I really did.
Yeah, you were the roving reporter.
I was working for a radio station at the time, and I got a pass to go anywhere I wanted, and they would just ring me up during the day and say, "Where are you?" And I'm at this event, I'm at that event, and I just give them a quick news update, how it's going, and all that sort of thing. Talk a little bit about the theatre out at the games. Channel 9 sent me to the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne.
I went to the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne.
Yeah, I went down there and I had to produce a 1-minute report for the news every night and met some lovely people down there. But the Olympic Games especially, and I bought a membership to the Olympic Stadium and I went every night to the track and field. And if you ever ask me what the best moment is in Olympic history, it starts and ends with Cathy Freeman. It's the most extraordinary sporting night I've ever experienced in all my life. The most extraordinary sporting event I have ever witnessed. I will never, ever, ever forget it, hopefully. It was just an incredible night.
Yeah.
Incredible night.
I never got to see that live. I was actually out there that night, but wasn't in the stadium. It was at one of those live sites they had.
Yeah.
And it was electric. I've got to say, my favourite Australian Olympic moment ever is Kieran Perkins' gold in '96 in Atlanta.
Yeah. Is that the one where he wasn't expected to do it?
He made it 0.28 seconds. He qualified for the final.
Yeah, but he had lane 8 or something or other?
Won it from lane 8.
And just charged to the lane
It was
and broke their hearts.
And I get to speak to him in the series. Talks
Yeah,
all about
I
it.
reckon in the race they didn't think he'd keep going. And he just kept powering
Well, he
away.
talks to us in Road to Paris about all the background to that. And, it just a triumph of heart.
Was he sick going into the semis or something? Or he wasn't?
Not
You can't give it
really.
away.
Just, it's...
But how he improved...
It was just will, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a sheer will.
Yeah, how he improved from semi-final to final. He was in lane 8.
Yeah.
Like lane 8's the slowest qualifier.
0.28 seconds.
He bounced out, he went to the front, and then he improved his position. He just
If
kept
he's
going.
a fingernail slower, he misses the final.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Roosters Penrith tomorrow night back at Allianz. Gee, I know that Souths were disappointing, but they're chugging along, the Roosters, aren't they? So Sam Walker's been cleared after 2 independent doctors examined him for his head knock. It was Category 1 last week, but it's been revised to a Category 2. He's in. Luke Keary's back as well after sitting out for 11 days, but they've lost Lindsay Collins to a hammy. Cleary gone. Brad Schneider, who's come back from England after 12 NRL games for the Raiders. Where's the Panthers' number 7 jumper?
Yeah. He's a handy player too.
Oh, I know, but he would never have thought. He would never have thought when he's trundling around in England he's going to come back and wear Nathan Cleary's jersey.
Well, Jack Cogger,
Yeah.
Sean O'Sullivan. You know, they've been able to find a player every year, knowing full well that Cleary is not going to play every game because of rep football. But there come these moments too where, given the opportunity, they've be interesting to see how they line up. I assume that Schneider will play the Cleary role. They will resist the temptation to move Luai into that game managing position, but.
I thought they might have played Laurie at 6.
I think the coach. Yeah, well, that's the other option they've got is Dane Laurie, and they've got him on the bench as well. So they've got it well covered.
Hey Gus, there's a guy on the bench.
Yes, Maverick.
How about that?
Maverick. I sent Big MG. I heard a whisper that he might be debuting, and I sent MG a thing saying debut ? And he come back. He was so proud.
Well,
I remember Maverick. Maverick was very, very young when I was out there. He was. I actually, funny enough, for Bill Harrigan, I went up and commentated the OzTag Championships at Coffs Harbour one year. And Maverick, my son used to play.
Whoa, stop there. You went and did Bill Harrigan a favour.
Yeah, why?
After all the drama he's put you through in his life, your life.
Well, he sent
you off twice,
yeah.
And you've gone and helped him out.
Yeah.
What a man.
Yeah.
I thought you'd block his number.
I get on well with all referees.
Please.
I don't bag referees.
Never.
Never. I criticise the rules and I criticise stupid process.
I can't believe you've helped Bill Harrigan out.
Why would I help Bill Harrigan out?
That's too funny. So Maverick guy was playing Oztag.
He was playing Oztag. Very good Oztag player.
All right.
He was a big string bean thing at the time. Very good Oztag player. But he's come through and he's a strong forward and we're all wishing him all the best. It's wonderful. It's happened a few times now. Players that I coached or played with and their sons are now get the opportunity to play in the NRL and that'll be a big thrill for them out there. And I can just imagine Big MG getting ready for the game tomorrow night.
Now, could I throw one left field? And I know it's too early to talk Origin. Would you fall over to see Terrell May in a Blues jumper at some stage this year?
No, he's very efficient. No risk in the world. It would be early in his career to do that. Terrell's kind of like a late maturer. Terrell May played in the same SG ball squad, which was, I think, at the under-18s at that time. He was in the same squad as Burton and Crichton, Sean O'Sullivan, those sort of players, and he was never sort of in the main side. I didn't mind him. And then I left, and he fell out of favour with rugby league, and he fell out of love with rugby league, and took some time off. And then he came back and played with Blacktown, and then somehow found his way to the West Tigers, and that didn't work out. And somewhere the Roosters picked him up, but he was always going to be a late maturer. He was always. And he's grown. He's a hulk of it. He's 114, 115 kilos. He's very strong. And he's interestingly last year in the New South Wales Cup, and he played predominantly New South Wales Cup last year with the North Sydney Bears, who were the feeder club to Roosters. They're not anymore, but he played New South Wales Cup, and he never missed a tackle all year. Not one. Missed tackle. Not one
this year either.
Ineffective tackle. and he's getting better at his ball running and that. So I'll tell you what he is. He's Origin tough. That's what he is. The occasion wouldn't scare him. He's a very good player. This is a hell of a roster, isn't it? Crikey.
As you point out every week.
It's a hell of a roster. Crikey.
Sorry, Scott Sorensen's missing as well. So is Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. So it's been knocked around a little bit, this game.
Yeah, look, you just got to be careful a little bit with Roosters games sometimes. All right? Now, the Roosters, as I've said over many times over the years, they have the ability to score tries that no other team is going to score. No other team is going to score. All right? It just happens for them when they're on a good day and they're having a good run, and there are some tries in that game. And so sometimes you can see a team like South Sydney concede 40-odd points last week, and people write South Sydney off straight away. But if you just took out those scoring moments and went into the flow of the game, it's nowhere near as bad for South Sydney as it looked, and it's nowhere near as good for the Roosters as it ended up being. It's never as good as they say. It's never as bad as they say. So the week before, Manly really contained the Roosters comfortably over there at Brookie. Remember that? They really, stifled them out of the contest, and they couldn't do much about it. Granted, they get Walker back, and they got Keary coming back, and confidence and all of that. They're going to be extremely hard to beat, but Panther is still the benchmark of this competition. Their record without Cleary is surprisingly good. It's a big ask for Snyder first up, but he possesses a number of the elements that Cleary provides for the team. So I don't, there's only one Nathan Cleary, but they can accommodate for that team a lot of that.
So the key, can they keep them to a couple of tries? Is that what you're thinking? Get the Roosters to a couple of tries.
Of course they can. Of course they can.
And if they can do that, they can win.
I think they've won the last 8 against the Roosters, and some of those have been floggings. I mean, their relentless nature, their grinding attitude, their high-speed grinding football, keeping the ball in play for long periods of time doesn't suit the Roosters, obviously, because they've had such a great record against them. So, I still think Panther is the benchmark in this competition. I said they're clearly the premiership favourites. Look at the Roosters. There's an argument they've got the best roster in the game. Simple as that. So this is a real chance for them to turn that around and beat. It's a huge game for the Rooster. They get their chance to beat the Panther. Fisher Harris isn't playing, is he?
No.
If he was playing, I would definitely be tipping Panther. I'm just looking at this. I still think Panther can win.
Okay. Panthers to win despite Nathan Cleary's absence. 7:30 live and free on 9 tomorrow night.
They won 15 of their 16 without him, haven't they?
Who? What?
Rooster with Panther with Cleary.
They've won 15 of 16.
Something like that. Some ridiculous statistic.
I haven't had the chance to have a look at that yet. That can't be right.
It is. They've won an extraordinary amount of games.
Really?
Yeah.
Now we've got a double header on Good Friday. Rabbit, the Easter Rabbit, up against the Bulldog.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like you've got the same team as last week. No changes. Everyone's sweet. Is that right?
Yeah, they're training today.
Okay. Anyway, the Fox is in 23.
Yeah, so I think he's having fitness tests today. Ooh. He was sort of bouncing around earlier in the week, thought he would play.
Might get the Fox back in.
There's a couple there with some niggly injuries that are not guaranteed to play.
Gus,
we'll see how they go today.
If you ever wanted to play South Sydney, this is the time, baby.
No. If I wanted to play South Sydney, I want to play them last week.
Okay, that's probably true.
That's where people make big mistakes. That's where people make big mistakes about trying to predict football or trying to bet or gamble on football and that sort of thing. People say they're going poorly. Well, that's when I wanted to play them, when they're playing poorly. After this week, with what they're copying in the media, you think there's not going to be a bounce back factor?
No, they copped it last week too. They did nothing.
And I'll tell you, I'll show you in the game last week, they were not as bad as what people thought. Nowhere in the world. They've got 6 or 7 Origin players. They've got an English international forward. The media's kicked them from one end of Redfern to the other. You don't think you're going to see a reaction? It's going to be a really tough game.
Jeez, I just got a text from my son. What's your address? I'm ordering something. Gee, that's a worry.
Yeah,
it's when they ask for money.
It's when they ask for your credit card.
I don't know how he's paying for it.
What I should do is go through my credit card at all the shops that I don't even know exist. I don't even know what they sell.
What are you doing giving your credit card away to your daughters?
Daughter and my mother and my wife. I don't
Okay.
know how they got it. They pinched it. Or they've got the numbers somehow.
No, this is a great one.
Shop. What's that? Where did that come from?
Friday night, good Friday night footy. Broncos Cowboys, full house.
Yep.
No Reece Walsh. Now Tristan Saylor in. I think I know he's not the dynamic player, but they're not dissimilar with their speed and ball playing ability.
He's capable.
So that means, of course, Selwyn Cobbo stays in the centres. Now Adam Reynolds is returning.
It's a big in.
Jaden Hunt has gone to the back row for Piakura. And, Corey Oates is in 7. He's going to play his first game, and he's been training a little bit in the back row, they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And for North Queensland, I did that game last week on radio. That was a weird game of footy, that.
That was bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
The Dragons looked like they were going to give it to them.
Remember, the Dragons the previous week got flogged. Who flogged them?
Dolphins.
Dolphin flogged Dragon after Dolphin had been flogged in week 1. This is early season form in its essence. Yeah, things go up and down.
18-4. Kicker, Vitala Mariner he has the
So they
ball
get
to
flogged
put
the week
down.
before.
It could have been 22-4.
Cowboys raging favourites. Score comfortably with their first possession of the game. Lead 4-0. Don't kick the goal. 20 minutes later, it's 18-4. Could have been 24-4, and there is no sign that that's going to stop. Cowboys are offering no resistance at all. They're virtually pouring through them. I thought, look at this. And you start to question the Cowboys. Then the Cowboys got a little bit of possession, and it just completely turned on its head and went the other way.
42 unanswered points.
30 minutes later, it's 46-4 or something. How does that happen?
I had no idea. It was the weirdest game ever. Anyway, they're going to go and play the Broncos. Full house.
Had some great battles over the years, haven't they? And great depth with this Broncos team too. We've read who's out of the team. Still look at the team they put on the field. Look at who's in, not who's out. I think I've got to go Cowboy in that one.
Okay.
Who's favourite?
I think it's toss of the coin stuff.
Yeah.
What do we got here? There's no early game on Saturday because we've got that doubleheader Friday. So 5:30 down in Wollongong. The Dragons are back up against Manly. Fair dinkum.
I think Manly's got a terrible record down in Wollongong, don't they?
Do they? Yeah.
Terrible record.
You think they're going to better it this week, the way they're playing, wouldn't you?
Well, did they make any changes to the Dragons?
Molo's in, Little's in, Sewer's in. They all missed.
Harme Seller plays his first game with the club. He was recruited from South Sydney. That's a good player, Harme.
Oh, he played with the Dragons. He was a Dragons junior. He's played there before.
Yeah, but he went and played with South Sydney.
Yep.
He went and played with Penrith, and he went and played with South Sydney.
Yep.
Eisenhuth, Sewer, Leigh Lewis starting, Blake Laurie. It's a good side, isn't it? I can never understand why Dragons lose games. I honestly can't understand it. I can't. They've got a good roster. Manly, what did that take out of them last week? That was a knockdown, drag 'em out Sunday shootout, wasn't it? That was a brilliant game of football.
No Schuster yet either. He's had 2 games in reserve grade.
Fair dinkum. I tipped Dragon last week to beat Cowboy, and at 18-4, I'm thinking, I'm a genius.
I tipped them too.
No one's seeing this coming.
What happened?
What happened then? How can you tip them to beat Seagull? Is Tom Trebojevic fitting well?
Yep.
I'll tip Tom.
Titans Dolphins. That game is at Seabus Super Stadium at 7:30 on Saturday night. So much needed good news following the crushing defeat at the weekend. Tino, obviously, as we know, is gone, but Jaden Campbell is back at fullback, and they're saying David Fafita might play. First game back from a peck. That's pretty much it, although Pulisier comes in to start at prop. A few other cosmetic changes. Ray Stone is back for the Dolphins from concussion and replaces Jared Wallace on the bench, and the only change to the 17, which beat the Dragons in round 2, so they're first up from a bye.
Yep. The Titan were coming off the bye last week too and didn't have a good day. So we'll watch that form with teams coming off the bye this year. Usually teams coming off the bye have got the advantage. Until Titan can find some defensive resilience, it doesn't matter how many attacking players they bring in. And Dolphin have shown they've got plenty of points in them. So I'm going to stick with Mr. Bennett's team.
Sunday footy here on 9. 4:05 p.m. kickoff. We're on air live and free from 3 o'clock. The Warriors against the Knights. This is a super game. Now, Roger's gone back to fullback.
Yep.
They're still a very formidable-looking team, aren't they?
Yep.
So Tuapicki's got concussion, so Roger's gone back there. Pompey into the centres. Nia Corey, first game of the year after a foot injury. He's handy to have coming back in. And Wade Egan, they say, has a good chance of playing at hooker. And Leo Thompson's got a suspension, so Daniel Safidi into the starting team, Brady Jones on the bench.
Yep. Warrior. This night last week, we tipped the Knights last week to beat Storm, and they looked like they were going to do it nice and comfortably, but just Storm just kept coming back at them and was very, very close at the death. I think Warrior too good in that one.
And Sunday night footy. Oh, there's a game on Monday too, so this is the last one, is it?
Sunday.
Sharkies, Raiders. Now, I mentioned all those big men out for the Sharkies.
Yep.
So Gus already ran through that team earlier, but Hazelton, Brayley, Kafusi, Talakai, Wilton, McInnes, the starting pack. Daniel Atkinson, who is a utility back on the bench with Jack Williams, Billy Burns and Tuku Hautapua. And as far as Canberra go, Corey Hillsworth played in the New South Wales Cup last week, and they haven't picked him.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, you're going good if you can't. Big Red's not getting in your side.
Well, they like the young Englishman, Morgan Smithies, who's a workaholic and doing really well.
So they've got Mooney, good player, Horsburgh and Kotrick in their he's an international, Nick Kotrick. They can't get a run.
Mm. Trey Mooney, he's a good player. They've got some depth there.
And they've got a big
Zach Wolford, who was playing regular last year. Yeah, that's an interesting one. The fact that it's at the Bermuda Triangle, I think, helps the Shark, but they were so disappointing the other night. So disappointing. And the previous week, before, I didn't think they were that convincing against the Bulldog either. The score certainly didn't reflect the Bulldog effort in that game. Hard. Canberra coming back from a long trip to Christchurch.
Gee, they were gutsy.
They were gutsy.
They are gutsy.
I'm going to tip Raider.
Yep. They've surprised a lot. And Easter Monday footy, Para versus the West Tigers. No Moses, so Blaze Talangi, who played centre, goes into the 6 to partner Dylan Brown. And the solo change to the 17, which got the job done against the Sharks last week so spectacularly, is Alex Twal out because of concussion, and Asu Kepawa comes onto the bench. Wow.
They're in such good form, Parramatta, but he is such a big out. Moses is such a big out. It's such a big out, which I think brings the Tiger right into it. And off the back of their morale-boosting effort last week.
We could have a tip for the Tigers coming here.
I'm going to tip Eel, but I'm telling you, there's a real chance of Tiger getting the money here. What's the betting on this one?
And rank outsiders.
No, they're not ranked outsiders.
Oh, it's changed a bit. Right.
Yeah, so let's go back to the draw and I'll go through the tips again. So we've got, I think Panther can still beat Rooster. I think Cowboy can beat Bronco. I think Sea Eagle can beat Dragon. I think Dolphin can beat Titan. I think Warrior can beat Knight. Who did I say? Shark? Or did I say? I said Raider. Raider can beat Shark. And Eel, don't miss that game. Don't miss that game. Tiger. I'm going to tip Eel.
Okay. Hope the Easter Bunny comes this week. There'll be boundless chocolate over the weekend and another excellent round of footy.
When does daylight saving in? Is it this weekend?
Week after.
Week after, is it? Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Gus. That's 6 Tackles with Gus this week. Enjoy the footy across the weekend. Talk to you next week.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast. Get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.